Hi guys, and welcome to the second episode of The Big Jalebi. And of course, as usual, I'm joined by my co-hosts, Jalpesh and Lakhi. Just quickly remind everybody who you are.
My name is Jal. Basically, I do property and luxury, the two things I think most people are interested in.
Oh, I'm interested in that. What about you, Lakhi? Lakhi Singh.
My name is Lakhi Singh. I work in property finance, property litigation, property help, pretty much everything to do with property and business.
If you need any help, here's the man. Me, I'm a motoring journalist. Check me out on #BrownCarGuy. I've been doing that for 30 years, so if you need any expert advice when it comes to cars, I'm your man. And of course, today we have a very special guest. This is Paresh Kiri, who's the author of 3 books on the stock market. He's managing a property fund in Mayfair. He's an adventurer, and also he's a meditation guru. That's the stuff that I want to talk about. Paresh, welcome to the show.
Thank you for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here. And yes, I've written 3 books on how to trade in the markets from my experience of being on the Financial Futures Exchange. And I guess it's more to do with reinventing yourself every few years. And you almost like sleepwalk into certain situations, and I pretty much did in the stock market. Anyway, that developed into a journey which had me managing a stockbroking firm and participating in a hedge fund. And that kind of came to a head in around about 2003. After 2003, I was traveling for a good part of 5 years on more of a self-discovery.
Okay, so you've jumped way ahead there. We'll come back to that because I want to talk to you about that because that's really fascinating. But just in terms of property, what has impressed you most about the sort of stuff that he was doing before he actually went on this journey?
Well, it's quite interesting to be able to give something up to go on a journey. It's difficult enough to do the small changes in life, let alone the big changes you've spoken about. So my question is, how do you have the courage to do something like that? To give something up and then say, right, I'm going to go traveling for that many years? It's a big step to take.
So just before we get into that, because that's a very, very good question, and that will lead us into a really big direction. But as you said, before you did that, you said you sleepwalked into the stock market. But obviously, that's a major industry in itself. And to leave some, just lucky for our audience listening and watching, just put into context, like if you've done well in that arena, how big of a thing is that?
Well, it's a bit like being the king of the hill and then going back to basics. I would actually sum it up in that way.
Mm-hmm. Where were you at when you were, before you embarked on this journey? Where were you at, in terms of your life, in terms of, the position in the world that you were at the time, your financial happiness, your personal happiness? Where were you at the time?
Well, I guess the only advantage of being in that industry was the financial happiness. But that doesn't actually... It grates when you can't do much other than provide for your immediate family, and you want to see changes. And also the questions that were coming up in my head when I was embarking on this stockbroking journey was, typically you'd be on the train and you'd see the same thing, people in the same the
same people reading the same newspaper, drinking the same coffee every morning on the way to work.
And they're just trying to figure out for what reason, to what end are we on this journey. Whether we're on it for a short while or together, it doesn't really matter. There's got to be a purpose, and that was more that desire to understand the innate reason why we're all here drove me to say, well, I've got to discover this, because I was in a fortunate position that I could afford to do that, of course. But then the money runs out and you've got to come back to where you are.
So I'm just trying to paint us a little picture of this scenario, because I want to really get into the adventure and talk about what you did, where you went, but I'm just trying to put it into context, because like you say, it's a big thing to suddenly, like you said, Jalpesh, it's a big thing to suddenly leave your life and go off and do something like that. It's quite a brave move.
It is. It sounds like the eat, love, pray, isn't it, scenario? Although I'm not sure if all of those apply. But it's a big factor. I see the same. I used to be in a job where it's 9 to 5, seeing the same thing over and over again. So I know how much of a step it is to suddenly say, there's more to life. There is something that I can achieve or help. And discovering that takes a big effort.
It does. I mean, Lucky, is this something that you would ever do? Would you just suddenly go, you know what, I'm off and I'm not coming back for a couple of years, 3 years, whatever?
Well, funnily enough, I actually did have the pleasure of doing it once, but it wasn't as long as you managed to achieve. I managed to actually escape the whole rat race when I was about 23 and went traveling to Italy, and I studied Italian. Lived in Italy for about 3 or 4 months, but I blew all the money I had, and then I had to come back.
Okay, so it's time to ask you for your favourite phrase in Italian then.
Yeah, I was going to say, give us some Italian. Ciao, bella.
Ciao, bella.
I could do that. You studied it. Give me something more than that.
Okay. Oggi è una bella giornata perché non andiamo a uscire qualche posto bello.
He looks so much sexier when he does that.
Yeah, that did work.
So translated, that means it's such a beautiful day today. Why don't we just go out and do something nice?
I'll tell you what, I have to admit, and it's not just because I love Ferraris, but one of my favorite places in the world is Italy, and Italian people, they're just so cool. No matter what they wear or what they say, they're just really sexy, aren't they?
I'm going to keep quiet about that one. I would say it's an amazing place, and the food is amazing, the people are amazing, the beaches are amazing, the architecture, the history. So I didn't really want to come back, but I think it's not an easy place to actually find work, though, which is actually suited to your skill set. If your Italian isn't sort of like 100%, my Italian was, I'm fairly fluent now, but it wasn't really like 100%. It was more like 60% in terms of my fluency.
So just to digress, how is it? Does this Italian? Do you get to use it now in business and stuff?
I have actually been on an occasion where I've flown off to a meeting in abroad to Holland, where I've met a couple of clients, and they couldn't speak a word of English, so they could only speak Spanish. So I actually spoke to them in Italian. They understood about 70% of what I said. So that was a 2-hour meeting. So it does actually come in handy, even though my Spanish isn't sort of all that.
So there you go. Good advice there. Important to learn an extra language. What do you say, Paresh?
I totally agree. I think it's understated, the importance of having an additional language to as a string to your bow, I guess. We're fortunate enough being brought up with 2 languages, of course, and yeah, I wish I'd known another European language for sure.
There's a contrast to that. I mean, when I did it, it was an anticipation of the EEC. So we've come full circle now, which is with another topic which we can't mention in the show.
No.
Otherwise, we would have a big jalebi.
Yeah. You know what we forgot to do? We forgot to offer Paresh some jalebi. Please help yourself.
I've been on a diet, so I'm going to decline if that's okay.
No, the fact that you've been on a diet justifies the fact that you can eat jalebi because you've already lost the weight. It's fine.
Yeah, we don't have a choice in this show, unfortunately. We have to force feed you, I think. So, can I do the honours? Yeah, just take this. You don't have to take all of them.
Yeah,
it's just tiny.
I don't know where to stop. That's half my battle.
Yeah, just take the. There you go. He started.
I'm sure meditation will stop him actually finishing the whole lot.
No, meditation will just get that weight that will just come off. It will just magically come off.
Easy.
But Jalpesh, do you know any extra languages?
This is the bad part. I went to school, learned French, but I forgot it as soon as I left school. I go to India, and I'm in the cab. We ask for an English-speaking driver just for me.
Yeah.
And I'm the only one who can't speak Hindi. And their English was Hindi, basically. So his first question was, where do you want to go in Hindi?
Yeah.
I'm stuck already. So I'm on Google Translate.
Oh my God.
There's no internet. So I think I need to either learn or find someone just to be around me that knows all these languages.
I think you and I need to go to the same class because we're in the same boat as well. Because I'm terrible as well. My Urdu Hindi is so bad that I'll speak it like to my wife, but nobody else ever because it's just embarrassing. I just wouldn't do it.
Same with Gujarati because
I'll give you a tip anyway. My tip, because I had to learn Italian the hard way, is basically learn about 5 sentences and actually talk in a way that actually they're perfect. When you start talking it, people start automatically talking to you. Then you start picking up words. Because if you say things like, sorry, I didn't quite understand that because your Hindi is not quite clear. So you say that in Hindi to them, then they have to repeat it slower, and they may use gestures, and you can actually pick everything up. So that's my sort of like a geeky, clever way of actually ensuring that you
that's far too clever. I spent half my life in the Middle East, and the only thing I learned was swear words. But anyway, enough of that. You didn't, however, go to Italy, and you didn't go to the Middle East. Tell us, where did you go?
I did actually. My first part of the journey was in the States. It all transpires that India was the key thing. I suspect is the right thing to say.
Was that the plan though? Was that like, when you were sitting on that train watching the people drinking their Starbucks and you're going, sod this, I'm going to India?
No, it wasn't the plan. The plan was I sat down and I made a list of all the countries that had a strong spiritual presence, and of course India is one of those.
Just define again for our listeners and our viewers. What do you mean by spiritual presence?
Well, in the words of forget his name now.
Some bloke.
Yeah, some bloke in the States. Some bloke in the States.
Deepak Chopra?
No, it was Dan Dyer. And he's
Wayne Dyer.
Wayne Dyer, that's right. And
He's written many books, The Power of Intention, I think.
Motivational guy.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Spiritual guy.
Right.
Yeah, and he summed it up he summed up many things, but this particular sentence draws a pretty good circle around the whole thing. That most people assume we are human beings wanting to have a spiritual experience, when in reality, and I can vouch for this, we're actually spiritual beings having a human experience.
Interesting.
And when you understand that, you then one of the first things I did was try to find out all the unabridged versions of script from the Devi Mahatman, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, because half the issues are they're interpreted and somebody puts their spin, typically against whatever their agenda is. And you don't want any of that. All you want is the absolute truth.
The unadulterated original edition, yeah.
That's right, and then you be the judge of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That doesn't mean you put your own spin on it. And this is where I discovered this particular meditation, which defines and has the ability, if you do it, for you to know what is true and what is not. Particularly this week, where it's been an important week, of course, with mental health. Most people or organizations don't understand that those thoughts people have will drive them to certain mental issues, only if they're compounded. So an illness, for instance, doesn't start overnight. It has an incubation period. It happens over time, and this is a constant battle of your inner self dealing with it.
So to kind of try and summarize that, are you saying the more that you're thinking about it, the worse you're making it?
Absolutely, yeah. It compounds every day. It compounds more and more, and you're creating almost a barrier between you and your higher self, if you like. And the only way to control that is by managing your thoughts, and the only way to manage your thoughts is through meditation.
But before we get onto that, because again, I want to take you back to this journey. So just talk us about the actual, the real world logistics of it. Where did you go? Why did you go? How long did it take you?
Yeah. So once I made the list of script, you then go to the relevant countries to understand it from the powers in those countries. I suspect is the best way to put it. So did you go to the places of study like madrasas or universities or temples or places like that? Temples, yes. Yeah. So the Brahmins or the spiritual leaders, or you get as close as you can to spiritual leaders, because I'm not known to anyone, so why would they entertain me in the first place? But you go as close as you can to understand what that means for that culture, if you like. And it's almost like what you discover is almost like connecting the dots with spirituality. So all of the religions, religion being a man-made thing, spirituality being a divine thing, they have their, and you can almost see the shift, the plain shift of humanity going from one way to another by these incarnations who came, and then whether it's Muhammad or Abraham or Moses, and then we picking up a baton saying that's the truth, and then running with it as humans do in a very straight line, very blinkered, and it then through generations is interpreted differently, and it sways again. Whereas what I try to do is go back to the root, and the root is where all the knowledge is.
So what commonality did you find between the religions and all these great studies and great books that you studied?
There's no commonality other than the one thing is you've got to be connected to the truth. Yeah, and the only way to connect is through this particular meditation we do, But and then you understand the purpose of that particular religion or the movement that happened at the time that was encouraged by that particular leader.
And where are the places that you went where you specifically found, nourishment intellectually for the stuff that you were looking for?
Yeah, so I'll just reel them off. So India, Greece, the States, Italy, and Spain were the 5 main areas. Yeah.
What about
Did you find any spiritual nourishment in Italy?
I would say that, well, it's quite a long time ago, so this is going back 25 years now. So I think for me it was more an adventure because mine was more of a boy from Southall going to Italy, not really even eaten pasta before, but just used to desi food, samosas and dal and sabji and saag. Yeah. So it was a complete contrast to the lifestyle of being in a very small, Asian community in Southall and discovering new food, new language, and it's like incredibly hot. It's like 30, 40 degrees in the middle of Florence.
So yours was more of a cultural awareness and a cultural expansion. Have you done anything like that? Have you gone searching for spirituality, Jalpesh?
I've just gone on holidays and enjoyed those moments. But I tend to work all the time. I sort of love doing that. So even when I'm away, I'm trying to think about work and the culture. And I like meeting people. So I grew up in a multicultural town, and it's turned into more Indian now. And now Polish, so I've enjoyed sort of movement of people and talking to one of my neighbours used to be Irish and my friends used to be all. So I'm used to having everyone around me anyway. So when you go on holiday, you seem to find a difference. It was different to me. So no, I haven't gone for a spiritual reason. Although when I used to go with my parents, it used to turn very spiritual because it was always going to the 100 temples in one day, and I think that takes away from it because I think you need time and space to find these journeys for yourself.
That's a very good point, Paresh. What do you say to that? That actually maybe it's not so much the journey, but it's the sort of mental journey that you're on where you seek that spirituality.
Precisely. Whatever the reason is, eventually that'll come. But you can't force people into understanding or believing in a certain mindset until it's their time, I guess. And that only comes whenever it is.
So, and what place or person, if you like, that specifically you found the most inspirational during your travels? Yeah. Again, what was the duration of your travels, and when was it again?
It was over the course of about 5 years, between 2003 and 2008. And during the course of travel, it's almost like you see. I guess the best way to put it is we as human beings assume that being the epitome of evolution, it stops here. When in actuality, if it's a living thing, it's got to continue. So what is the next step? And people like Jung, Blake have given us hints to it. In fact, even Shakespeare, has written that the world is merely a stage and we merely players. So if there is a hand that seems to be writing the script, I'd much rather be the observer of the play than participate in it so much.
Is that what meditation does for you? It sort of transcends you above everything so that you're sort of somebody looking in rather than being in it?
Well, that's interesting as well, because what you got to understand is if I'm away from something and I'm looking at myself, then I'm obviously not it. Something whereas it's like the sun, it gives you light, but it doesn't go away saying I'm the one providing light. So as Jung put it, for collective consciousness to happen, we've all got to be aware that we're doing this, but not being away from what you're doing, but you're literally within the ocean that is the collective consciousness. And that can only happen when you're in meditation or doing meditation itself.
There's one thing I was going to ask. Isn't art linked with spirituality in a very fundamental manner? Because art is an artist's impression of his thoughts and spiritual feelings in some instances. What's the connection between art and spirituality?
There's quite a big connection. If you look at William Blake's art in particular, and he wrote what is considered to be, or some people consider to be, the English anthem now, Jerusalem. But you look at some of his art, he's a printer by trade, and he gives you an insight into the actual concept of the divine and his play and what he wants to do. So art is vital within spirituality. The words I have are limited, clearly, and even in Sanskrit, which is a far deeper poetic, it's a language that's sung almost, would give you a truer meaning of what that means for art's sake. I don't have those words, and that's why when you look at a piece of art that's done by somebody who's completely immersed and understands that the world is merely a stage and we're players, internally your spirit is resonating with that piece of art, and you can't describe it.
Yeah.
Lucky, do you meditate much?
I try and meditate at least 3 or 4 times a week in the mornings for about 10 or 20 minutes. I do have a couple of interesting things I wanted to talk about regarding meditation, which I think will be useful for the people watching this. So
hang on. So we're now moving into meditation now. So
Yeah.
we've covered that off because that's interesting that you say you do meditate. So
Yeah.
quick straw poll then. Do you do any meditation?
I've thought about it. I have tried. It gets to around 30 seconds, and I think it's about practice. I think it's a great idea. I think we all should do it. And it's just finding the right techniques, I think, and then saying, well, I'm going to try this more and more and gives more time towards it, really. So I think it's an interesting subject, and maybe I can learn something.
I would be interested to learn something because, quite frankly, meditation in me is like nothing whatsoever. Several people have said meditate. Now, here's my problem. Right, this whole thing about clearing your mind and emptying, I can't do that. My mind, the moment I start to clear it, I start to think about the shopping list. I start to think about the articles I've got to write. I start to think about, I wonder how much power that new Corvette's going to have. All of this stuff starts entering into my head, and I cannot clear my head. Yeah. So just before I turn to you, I think you had another question.
Well, I think I was going to make more of a point rather than a question, which is that what Paresh is saying is actually, let's just say, something that really, really fundamentally works, but it's actually it's a hidden truth that not many people can actually conceptualize or realize. So I myself have actually taken some deep interest in actually constantly over the last 20-30 years investigating various courses, individuals, going into scriptures, etc. And I've sort of pieced together a couple of scientific things which actually will fundamentally blow your mind.
Go on then, blow my mind.
So, So
waiting for my mind to be blown.
So number one, we don't realize the power of our soul, and the only way you can connect to your soul, like Paresh says, is by connecting into it directly. But I've got a scientific way of proving it because so there's a particular machine called a GDV machine which measures your aura. And what
machine that measures your aura.
That's right.
What's an aura?
So aura is aura and the 7 chakras. I think Paresh probably can talk more detail about it. But basically, there are key points in your body which vibrate at a certain level, from sacral area to your, all these different areas. But you can actually read that up yourselves. Basically, if they're not vibrating or in tune together, working in synchronicity and actually well. So, for example, if you suffer from anxiety, that's going to help probably suffer around this area. It'll affect the way you think and the way you act across all your chakras, and it'll probably lead to illness as well. But let me go into the scientific point so it makes it easier.
So just for those people listening, Lucky was making some hand gestures there. He was basically partitioning parts of his body to indicate where, because obviously people listening can't see. So you're kind of partitioning parts of your body to indicate the levels of the chakras. So go on. That's
right. So first point is that, tell you a little story. I went to the gym once and I met a gentleman who's about 75 years, 80 years old, I think maybe 80 plus. And I said to him, how's it all going in the gym? He goes, I'm working really hard, but nothing seems to be happening. You would probably expect at 80 that, something, you wouldn't be expecting anything to happen anyway. But I said, did you know that exercise doesn't really mean anything for you necessarily? Fundamental meditation actually could make a big difference. He goes, oh, well, if anything can help me, tell me what I can do. And he goes, I haven't been able to sleep properly for the last 10 years. I said, it's very simple. Just simply take 10 deep breaths now. I'll show you how to do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so breathe in, for 8 seconds, breathe out, keep your eyes closed, maybe think of a positive thing like your wedding or when your first child was born, or your
That
best
might not be
birthday.
the most positive thing for most people, just to keep that in mind. But, go on.
So I said, just do that exercise. And he said, okay, I'll try that. I said, you don't have to do it for hours and hours, just do it for about 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes before you go to sleep. And he said, okay, I'll try that. So I bumped into him literally 3 weeks later. He goes, Lucky. He goes, thing you said to me, it's been amazing. I've actually, the best sleep I've had for the last 3 weeks in the last 10 years. I said, so, he goes, what else should I do now? I mean, like, as if I'm the expert, but I'm not.
Okay, well, you know what, Lucky, let's turn to the expert, because you're clearly a semi-expert yourself.
Yeah.
Jalpesh is sort of halfway there. Me, I'm a complete dud. I don't exercise and I can't meditate. So what can you tell me that I could use to help myself?
Well, this just to sort of answer your previous question about what I did actually discover on this journey, and I'll touch upon what Lucky was, so try and bring it all together. There's this particular meditation, it's called Sahaj Yoga. Sahaj means you're born with this ability to have yoga. Yoga, the definitive meaning, is your connection with the divine. Now, ancient script tells us, and you've seen the diagrams on the walls of these various chakras that are inside us, and there's 7 of us from the sacrum bone up to the top of your head. And each of those, like he said, have a particular function. So scientifically, the heart chakra, for instance, has the ability to monitor and look after all the organs around the heart, or the nabi, the intestines, spleen, pancreas, etc., etc. This is optic chiasma, brain at the top, at the third eye point, if you like. They have a set number of petals, and they have their own resonance. Chakra in Sanskrit means wheel, so it's going to have a resonance and a particular frequency. Those frequencies only go out through our own stresses, our own thoughts, and when they go out, the energy within them reduces, and therefore they can't put relevant attention on your organs, and this is how you get illnesses, for instance. Yeah. The difference with this particular meditation is that we know that this particular subtle system with the chakras and 3 channels, left, right and center, left is moon channel, right is sun channel, is controlled by a particular energy called the Kundalini. She's like your mother, and she's in your sacrum bone. In this particular meditation, she rises through the central channel and nourishes each of those centers right to the top, and you should be able to feel the energy on your fingertips.
When you say you feel the energy, how do you mean? Like, it physically manifests itself somehow?
Yes, you'll
So
feel
kind of
either,
like a tingling or something?
it depends in what state your chakras are at, because that defines what you feel ultimately. So everyone is a little bit different, but the essence is, yes, if they're under stress or duress, you're going to feel tingling. If they're under compounded stress, you're probably going to feel heat. If they are aligned, then you're going to feel coolness ultimately. So you associate cool breeze, if you like, with a balance, that you're not too much on the left or the right. The left side is all to do with your desires, your emotions, all the past, and your thoughts go from the left and the right. The right is all your future aspirations, and it's the sun channel and the action, if you like. And your thought process go from left to right constantly. So you're never in the zone. You know, like sportsmen say, I'm in the zone, means I'm literally in the present moment. And that moment, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, The Secret, you can, under various guises written about already, it can be only achieved when this energy rises, bring these 2 institutions down, and you are in this state of the present.
So you're an author, you've written 3 books, I'm a writer as well, and you talk about being in the zone. So, like, for example, sometimes when you're writing, like, writing's quite difficult, as you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
you can be staring at a blank, screen now. Well, I was going to say page, but screen now for hours. But sometimes when I'm writing something, it just flows, and it's such a beautiful moment, and you don't want to be interrupted at that point. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that inspiration, that gut feeling is your soul spirit talking to the Kundalini, telling you, I'm here and this is what you should be writing.
Okay, so let's get practical a little bit. Let's give our viewers and also remember our listeners some practical methods that they could use, like right now after watching this. Don't do it now whilst you're watching this. Wait till afterwards. That they could do immediately after this to help themselves.
Yeah, I think the easiest thing is really. Well, there's several things, but I would point.
Oh, sorry. I would just say, don't do this if you're listening to this whilst driving.
Yeah.
This is a crash course in meditation.
Please don't let it be a crash course.
Permanent meditation.
Yeah. Sorry. Please go ahead, Paresh.
So, is it okay to point you to a website, possibly?
Yeah. Go for it, man. Absolutely.
The one that I would suggest is what you got to understand is. This thing is internally already built within you. You shouldn't have to pay for it. It just needs to be switched on. And this is what I discovered. Most people's agendas is what they can get out of it, whether it's financial or otherwise. This particular meditation, if you go to www.freemeditation.com, that would be the first place. Or look up Sahaj Yoga. The simple tips would literally be. Probably not in today's weather, but in the summer, go very early in the day when the birds and bees start waking up, because that's when the first sun rays start hitting your town or whatever. Try and get out there 5 o'clock in the morning if you can, or whenever sun rises, and just connect to the Mother Earth. Listen to the birds and bees, and that will help you.
Doesn't Wayne Dyer say that there's an ultimate point in time in the 24 hours of your day that's a peak in terms of your connection? Is that 4 o'clock in the morning or something? Is that right?
That is whenever your sun rises.
So it's the same as photographer's golden hour then, really.
Yeah.
Golden hour for sunrise and sunset.
Yeah.
So all the selfie people out there would know that time instantly.
Yeah, and the car photographers
so
as
there
well.
you go. So it is all connected.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it's foolish of the human race to think that there's not a hand but controlling all this, but it's part of the journey, part of the enjoyment.
Good enough for a selfie, it's good enough for meditation.
There you go. Yeah. So just before we go, just like quickly, just so once you're out there, you're listening to the birds and the bees, you're connecting with the earth. What should you be doing? Like physically, what should you be doing at that point?
Well, nothing, because you should be in this state of thoughtless awareness once you've done this exercise.
Oh, so that's my problem. I can't do the whole thoughtless thing. How do I get to that?
You need to go to the website and try the exercise, and that will put you in thoughtless awareness.
That sounds like activity. Hang on.
I'm going to give you. I've got a couple of tips for that.
We can try it at the end.
So what you do? One of the things you can do is actually, let's just say it's a summer's day, walk barefooted on grass. That's number one.
I'll get arrested if I'm walking around outside with my. What's the matter with this guy? You got any shoes?
You can do that. Believe me, you can do that. So second thing is, start noticing things that you wouldn't normally look at. So for example, as you're walking down the park, normally you'd be in your own head thinking about, which car am I going to be interviewing later on tonight, and what I'm going to be doing.
That's bizarre. I'll be interviewing a car. That'd be incredible. But yeah, go on.
You heard about the talking car? Okay, so so basically your head's somewhere else. The idea is to distract yourself and be in the present moment. The way to do that is start noticing things which you wouldn't normally notice. So you may notice, for example, now I noticed that there's some jalebis here, and that this is actually red.
We know where his mind's at.
Red and golden colours. But notice things, maybe the colour of the sky, and in noticing you'll be in touch with the present. And just doing that for about a few minutes every day will definitely make a difference in terms of what happens in that day. It'll actually change your day. Like, you may not necessarily realize that because we're caught in a very human behavior in terms of what we do on a day-to-day basis, but that will actually hook you into your present. And that will definitely make a difference in terms of how your day changes, by the way.
So we're almost at the end of the show, and a lot of great.
Sorry?
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah,
so a lot of great advice from our two resident experts now, apparently on meditation. But I want to just sum this. I want to wrap this up really with just asking you, Paresh, because you're talking about spirituality, you're talking about meditation, you're talking about going out, discovering yourself, and all the rest of it. But at the same time, your life is a very practical life in terms of you're an expert on the stock market, you're managing a fund. How do you reconcile these? Because to a lot of people, you're either a hippie or you're a capitalist. How are you reconciling these two things?
Well, you have to put food on the table, right? So there's a need to go out there and do something. I think ultimately it's It's down to what the purpose, the why. Why do I do this, therefore? And the same reason why I'm here, I guess, is to talk more about the meditation. It gives me the opportunity, to engage with people and have because people want to see credible people, and with that they assume, rightly or wrongly in some cases, that whatever they're doing, I want some of that. And if I can show them even one or two people a day, sometimes I'm thinking, how do I explain this to people? Then I've done my thing. But you can't do that when you're a hermit in the Himalayas. So you've got to be practical, and you got responsibility. So you got to contend with.
I think that's a great way to balance life and your individual desires and aspirations. Yeah, Lakhi.
Yeah, I also wanted to make a quick point, which I think the point sort of half made it, but to make it quite specific. When I did a quick experiment to make it scientific, some people are very sort of like negative about anything to do with what's all this connection stuff. But this is actually scientifically shown. I actually did this experiment. It's very simple. Your normal heart rate now, as you're watching us, all our heart rates are probably going like that on a heart monitor. I don't know.
Well, I don't know if the girls, if the girls are watching Lakhi, they might be, their heart rate might be racing. I don't know.
Okay, so they'll be going like that. But what happens is that when you start the meditation, this is a genuine exercise, and you monitor your heart rate. This is how it comes across on the heart monitor. It goes like that. They come round waves. Now, as soon as you're doing that, that's when you're in connection mode. Now, what you'll also find is that that's at the point where you're at complete stillness and your breathing is actually very relaxed. Now, I want a very simple metaphor for everybody to be shared, actually, which I think will help everybody, is that, did you know that hardly anybody ever switches their engine off? Because even when you sleep, you technically haven't switched off. So the only time you ever switch off your engine, in reality, and this is a car analogy for you, that when you pull the car key out, the car's not working, is when you meditate. So that's why I want everybody to take away as a message, which is that if you did that for even 5 minutes in a day, you'll find that your life will fundamentally change in a way that you'll be more connected, and it will make your life a lot happier. You'll be a lot more successful in whatever you do.
By the way, if you take the car key out, the alarm system clocks, and some systems are still working. But anyway, but I get your point. Yeah, Jalpesh, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I think we've learned something today, and I think I'm definitely going to go on the website and have a look, and also research your books as well.
Oh, great.
I think that message has to. I think it's good that we are able to share that message.
I think that's a very good point. Before we go, just remind everybody where they can find you, where they can find your books, and where they can learn more about this.
So the books are co-authored with myself and a guy called Jalpesh Patel, and you've probably seen him more than me on the public arena. And the website is www.freemeditation.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us today, Paresh. Thanks to my co-hosts, Jalpesh and Lakhi. This is Shazad Sheikh. Hope you enjoyed this. Make sure you subscribe and follow all of our social media channels and our YouTube page. Whatever we're doing, it's the Big Jalebi. Check us out. We'll be back again with some more amazing guests and some more incredible information and discourse, of course. And let us know if you're able to switch off your engine.